and welcome along to the show tonight, Morty.
Hello, how are we?
Pretty good, pretty good.
You got a touch of sun.
I think it might just be the colour of the light tonight.
No, well, it was sunny today, but it was freezing. I was in Belfast and it was very cold. But yesterday the pubs opened again. Yeah!
And we all managed to have a pint, didn't we?
We all managed to have a pint, but we had to sit outside. And I swear it was so cold. There was penguins walking about with coats on. It was freezing cold when you're out of the sun. So I had a couple of pints and went home. But
it was extremely cold, I must admit. It was extremely cold. With an awful lot to get through tonight. The Whiskey Companion guy standing by. So is Brian Smith from The Hard Truth as well. So without further ado, sort of get your script ready. There we go.
Justin, that's the best thing you've ever done. I'm telling you that now. That your career peaked when you picked that there. Well done, my old son.
I don't think it did. I don't think it did. But remember to comment, like, and share if you're watching. And if you'd like to buy us a coffee, it's buymeacoffee.com/Irish whiskey. Bottoms up. What's first on the news tonight, then, Mark?
Did you say first onion?
Right. No, it's the internet. It's maybe glitching.
All right, okay. Now, on the news this week, first up, Irish distillers have announced that the second chapter of its 6 bottles in the Middleton Very Rare Silent Distillery story is going to be released, okay? Now, these whiskies range from 45 to 50-year-old and all here from the old Middleton Distillery. Now, remember, there just isn't 40-year-old Irish whiskey. There's dribbles of it about the place. Now, that distillery lasted from 1825 to 1975, and this cask was bottled in June 2020 after spending 46 years and 9 months, first in sherry and bourbon cask for over 20 years. Then it was married and recast into refill bourbon. Then the spirit was taken and cast into newly arrived port pipes, and the last part of it, so it being put back into a refill bourbon cask. Now, the bottles are hand-blown Waterford crystal, hand-etched, and numbered 1 to 70. Okay, so that's how many bottles of it there is. The wooden cabinet that it comes in is handcrafted by the Irish designer John Galvin, and the wood is from 200-year-old reclaimed Irish oak whisky vats. It's also got elm and Japanese tamil detailing.
What on earth is that?
I don't know. It's wood, Justin. It's from Japan. I don't know. It could be like mango wood or something. I don't know. Now, the tasting notes, on the nose, it's exotic spice, dark fruits, nut and worn leather. Tasting, it's berry fruits, pot still spice, star anise, ginger, and the fruit flavours linger, Justin. And on the finish, it's delicate spice, fruit, with oak being the last word. That's their words, not mine, okay? I haven't tasted this yet, okay? So how do you get your hands on this, Justin? Well, you have to join the 1825 room, and then you enter a ballot. And if you're lucky enough to win, you'll have to pay €40,000, £38,000, or $45,000, depending on where you are. Now, so that means you have to be very lucky to win it, Justin. You need your money. That's, to be fair, you would need your sort of cash flow to buy that. Yeah, so, yeah.
Oh, listen, I'd rather live the American dream. What's next tonight, then?
Now, next up is Bushmills. We were talking last week, about the Bushmills Caribbean rum. Samples are on their way, folks. There's been a bit of a glitch with this, but they are coming out. We'll hopefully have them for next week. So the Caribbean rum, they have also brought out part of this original cask finish series as the new American oak. Okay, so there's another one. I like the fact that Bushmills are bringing out non-limited edition stuff things that you can actually go in and people can afford to buy just off the shelf at £25 or whatever it is. So yeah, round of applause for them. Well done.
Good. They seem to be doing everything right this while back.
But like this, we have been critical of Bushmills for certain things in the past because I think they got it wrong in some of the things that they had been doing. But I think this is what lots of people have been crying out for. Nice new cask finishes, new expressions that you can actually buy without having to enter a lottery, like the Middleton Silent Stills collection. You know, that Silent Stills, like, you don't even get a free bottle of Coke with that. You know?
Yeah, no. I know. Listen, we're going to Japan twice tonight. With Blade Runner, we're going to Japan.
Yes, Justin. For Star Wars fans. Now, I actually quite like this. I just thought this was a cool story. If you're a fan of Star Wars and certainly Harrison Ford, you might want to check out Wyoming Whiskey's National Park range. Okay? It's been created to raise funds for the National Park Foundation. And this is the second edition of the annual release. So they're bringing this out every year. Now, 78-year-old Harrison Ford, I didn't think he was that old, to be honest. 78. Anyway.
Well, isn't Calista Flockhart his wife, isn't she?
I suppose she's maybe keeping him young.
Yeah.
You know, she's a considerably younger than him. Now, hang on. The second edition of it, he's the creative director of this whiskey. Don't know what that means, but he's a creative director of it.
That's maybe like Harry's job, Prince Harry's job at that firm.
Justin, we're trying to stay popular. We can't really mention Prince Harry.
Right. Oh, you're trying to keep it in case we get an OBE for services to whiskey. Is that what you're hoping for? Yeah.
Yes, I get a wee touch on the shoulder. Arise, Sir Marty. I'll have people doing that to me.
So this is like National Parks and Recreations, isn't it? A TV show or something like that?
Probably something similar to this. Ron Swanson, if Ron Swanson, he would be mortified because he only drinks Lagavulin. But Harrison Ford said, for 35 years, I've been lucky enough to have a home in Wyoming. I would imagine he's got quite a few homes. And I'm proud to work in conjunction with Wyoming Whiskey, my neighbours and friends, in support of the National Parks Foundation. So we like this kind of thing. We like the fact that people try and raise money, and no better way to do it than through whiskey.
Well, the national parks are 100 years old, and I've been in a couple of the national parks, and hopefully later on this year, you'll be in a few of them too, fingers crossed.
You never know. You would never know, Justin. You would never know these things. You know?
So, where are we heading next then?
Now, we have to say congratulations, because in terms of the Irish whiskey section of the San Francisco World Spirit Awards, our very own James has won the best blend of Irish whiskey for the Dark Silky, which we like very much. We're a big fan of this.
Hold on, he's just said it's not much if you say it quick, but he's probably talking about the price of that, is he?
I think he's talking about the Middleton Silent, but this is extremely affordable. This is extremely well crafted, extremely well blended. It's a bit of a strange one because it's a mix of three different things and a bit of peat in it and so on and so forth. And it's really good. And I think it's £35 or something a bottle. Go and buy this. Congratulations, it's thoroughly deserved. Yeah, couldn't rate him highly enough. And I know he watches the show every week. Fabulous guy. Thank you. I'm going to have one.
Good.
I'm just thinking, you know that Harrison Ford one? You'd like a whiskey when you pull the top of it off, it goes. You would buy that one, wouldn't you, Justin?
I probably would buy that one, but we know somebody that lives in Ballymena and collects those things. He definitely would, wouldn't he?
Oh yes, there's actually a bottle of Bruichladdich with Han Solo on the label, and I think Stanley would probably sell at least 2 major organs to get his hands on one of them. But unfortunately, he's not going to get it, I don't think.
Okay. So is it that time of the night where we find out how things are doing in the graphs and the charts, and we get all technical?
We're going to bring on our good friend Carl from the Whiskey Companion.
We are indeed.
Give us.
How's it going, lads? How's things?
give us a roundup of what's been going on the secondary market, because this is going to be a new feature. So, welcome, Carl. How are we?
Yeah, all good. How are you?
Oh, getting better.
Good to be here.
The pubs reopened yesterday, so civilization's starting to come back. You know.
Oh, you don't know how jealous I am. It's still a bit away for the south, I think. So, but we'll see.
So what's been going on?
Yeah, so there's been 2 Irish auctions finished in the last kind of 2 weeks, 3 weeks with Celtic whiskey and Irish whiskey auctions. So just kind of picking a couple of the key points of the auctions. So this graph that's up on the screen at the moment is the Middleton Very Rare 2009. So a lot of people might recognize that little spike where it went for €6,000 last month, and it's absolutely crazy that it reached that, especially coming from a steady enough hanging around the €2,000 mark. It just shot up to 6,000. So a lot of people were kind of interested in seeing if it would hold up, and if it would stay around at 6,000.
That's like Bitcoin. That's like Bitcoin, the way it shot up, isn't it?
It's very similar. It must be the same people using Bitcoin investing in whiskey now.
Justin, is that my Christmas? Have you bought my Christmas present a wee bit early?
No.
Brilliant.
No. Well, we didn't have to wait too long anyway to figure out if it would stay at that level. There were 3 in the last month, and the Tradium still went for over 5,000. So, I mean, that's the new price, isn't it? Like there's enough people out there that want to buy it, and they're willing to pay top dollar for it. So
it's
mind boggles. But
the Middleton Very Rare prices have just went absolutely crazy in the last 2-3 months. I mean,
they really have, and funnily enough, this month, I do a monthly auction spotlight. Kind of focused on Irish whiskey auctions at the moment, just due to time constraints, and they kind of have a wider selection of Irish whiskey for me to delve into. But this is the first month over the last 4 months where overall the Middleton Very Rare actually decreased as a set overall. There was a lot of bottles that dropped kind of 5, 10, 15, 20%, with one even going down 30% in the 87, the 1987. So that increased 30%. Now it's still fetching nearly $2,000, but like
it's all relative, really. But I mean,
it is all relative.
They shot up there just after into the new year, and they have went up and they've come down a little bit, but they haven't dropped to anything like what they were a year ago.
A couple of things have been flatlining, but haven't they?
Oh yeah, like this one here. Sorry, my screen is a bit small, but
it's the green 19-year-old. Yes.
Yeah. So this one I chose to kind of put something to the buyers out there and to the people who are looking at whiskey prices, which I think is important to note. And Anthony from Irish Whiskey Auctions is always saying this: you can't chase the previous buyers.
No.
In the last auction when it went for $2,000, there was at least 2, if not 3 people or 4 people that were looking to get this bottle, and one had deeper pockets than the other. And that was the first time this bottle came up in auction in years, and it went for $2,000. And obviously someone thought, okay, it's time to sell, which anyone would think. You have a €2,000 bottle, and why not try and sell it? And it absolutely just fell like a rock, down to I think it was 800 or 1,000.
And the 10-year-old didn't fare much worse either, did it?
It was the exact same sort of premise. Both of them were in the same auction 2 months ago, and then just fell like a rock this month. And it just goes to show you can't like taking one instance of a price is never going to work long term. If you're chasing the previous buyers, they're gone because they've already bought. You know?
Exactly.
So I just wanted to bring that to light.
Yeah. So I keep seeing lots and lots of things. Oh, whiskey's making 500% a year and blah blah blah. There's certainly stuff to get if you're collecting. If you're trying to invest, it's you have to take your risks. It's the same as everything else, you know. It really is.
Exactly. Nothing is a sure thing.
No. Absolutely. Now, Teeling have been doing sort of a bit of strange maneuvers here. What's that all about?
Yeah, so this one here, I kind of brought up simply for Marty. So overall, the Teeling Revival series actually fared quite well comparatively to the last couple of months, and I think it's down to himself. Recommending that people should go out and buy this.
Dr. John, feel free to chat out.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of does hover around the kind of 115, 130 mark, and there was a couple that went higher over the last 3 months. So the likes of the Revival Volume 1 that went for €210, which is a 25% increase. The Revival 3, there was 3 of them in the auction, and each of them kind of met the average. It was slightly down. Revival 4 was up by 3%. 5 was down 3%.
I think the thing about it is they are still extremely reasonably priced, extremely good quality, extremely fabulous presentation. And if anybody's interested in collecting whiskey, it's one to really buy into, and good on them. I think they have lots of potential for going that way more than
definitely
down.
Yeah. And I'd say if you do happen upon yourself a set for under €800, you're on the big pack because it's cheaper than buying them all individually. One that I think you'd be quite interested in, Marty, is the Renaissance series. The first edition of the series. So this was only released in 2019, I believe, and it was released at €140, and in the last auction it went for 310. So
double your money.
68%.
Yeah, doubling your money. It's hard to beat.
It is.
It's
there was one other Teeling that I think we should address, and this might sit uneasy with some people, but the 24-year-old Vintage Reserve. So that's won the single malt of the year, the 2016 edition. That was hovering around €350-400 for the last 12 months or more, and it went for €760. So
you see,
so I think it's come maybe Teeling are finally getting the
recognition they deserve. I think they are. I think they should. I mean, as I say, presentation wise, the story of I've said it many times. Dr. John Teeling, for me, is certainly one of the key elements in bringing back the whole Irish whiskey scene. He really is. So,
absolutely,
without question. So it's nice. It'd be nice to see them getting the recognition there too. So, Carl, thank you very much. And it's nice to get a wee roundup. Let us know what's going on. And if anybody wants to download the app, I have it on my phone, and very handy it is too. Go to the Whiskey Companion.
Available just yet.
Well, it will be. I'm doing the trial of it, but no, the app it's working fairly well. It's working very well. Sorry. And go to the website whiskeycompanion.com.
Thank you very much. And I just see James in the comments there about Dark Silk, and you were talking about it there. I know previously when I was on, we were talking about it, and it was 255, I believe, the last time. So it actually came up in this Irish auction, the Irish whiskey auction, 4 of them. So you know, kind of people saturating the market a little bit, but it held its own, and it just goes to show the quality and the demand that's there. So the average ended up being €170 over 4 of them. So I mean, you can't beat that.
You can't.
It's nice.
And it's the thing about it is it's people have tasted it, people have drank it, and think, well, if I want it again, it's a fabulous drink, really, really good, really good. So, Carl, wait,
All
I think you're having a little drinky yourself, my old son, are you?
I am, yeah. I just opened a Powers gold label 12-year-old, and didn't the cork break on me, but had to get my corkscrew out.
Don't mention Powers to Justin. It's been a bad week for Justin and Powers.
Yes,
We'll reveal more on Monday night.
I didn't get to chase a £5,000 one.
Oh, I heard.
Yeah.
There was definitely a bit of venom in your voice when you were talking.
What can I do? What can I do, Carl? In all honesty, what can I do, my old son? I can't.
You're only human, Marty.
You can't look a gift horse in the mouth. I did make up for it. I did make up for it. You put in my bargain bucket.
You're only human.
Yeah, that's why he has the hard truth on tonight, because it's the hard truth he's given me. Yeah.
I even got you gravy. I got you gravy and everything, just.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, amigo. Bye-bye.
All right, buddy. Take care.
No, there we go. There we go. What a week. What a week.
But there you go. That's the auction roundup. I know loads of people are collecting stuff, and it's nice to bring on a guy to actually tell us these are things, because there's still bargains to be had there. So don't be scared of buying stuff at an auction.
Lots of people like Michael Matthews, Patrick Mulkey, and all are saying, "Gosh, that's brilliant! The dark silky." There you go.
It is. It's thoroughly deserved.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there we go. Lots of that for the dark silky. Every silky is easy to drink. There you go. If you're watching tonight, remember to comment, like, and share. buymeacoffee.com/Irish whiskey. If you want to go on the trip, which is probably getting closer and closer as the lockdown lifts. Yes. Yeah, you need to be a full member. Sign up for a full member, 40 quid, and you are guaranteed to be on that trip. No matter how many there is, if there's a minibus, it's a minibus, and if it's 5 coaches, Marty and me will split ourselves in 2.
It could be the back of a horse or cart, the way everyone has to be open air. That's whether you never know.
It could be. Hey, we could do a live and let die and drive the bus under a low bridge and take the top off, and then we'd be all right, wouldn't we?
Okay, Justin.
You could have the top deck, and I'll be on the bottom deck.
I know.
With a £5,000 bottle of whiskey.
I'd be like that. Oh, no. I'll just enjoy a wee sip of Guinness here.
Now, who's waiting in the wings for us tonight? Brian Smith, of all people.
Brian Smith's coming on.
Yes. What's he coming on to talk about? Is he coming on to rub in the hard truth to me?
Brian is coming on. Brian is from the Hard Truth Distillery in Indiana. Brian, welcome.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
It's our pleasure. It really is. The Hard Truth Distillery popped up to me, and I saw a news story where it was about Indiana getting legislation passed to say that Indiana rye whiskey has to meet certain criteria. So basically the same as Scotland or Ireland has to meet those criteria. And I thought, with all the new distilleries in America, we're starting to see this regionality. People starting to go, possibly Texas and, the Kentucky and New York. There's going to be New York stuff and so on. And yours was the one that popped up. So tell us about that.
Sure. So, rye whiskey production in the state of Indiana, if you're aware of the different rye whiskeys that have been available on the shelf here, whether they be craft or large brands, really a great majority of that whiskey in the last 10 years is actually produced in Indiana. And I always like to refer to them as this little distillery down the road from us. MGP is in an old Seagram's distillery plant in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, and they've been making standing rye whiskey for the last 10 years. And most of the brands, if you're on looking on a shelf in America and you're looking at straight rye whiskeys and you spin that bottle around to see where it's produced, a lot of them will say Lawrenceburg, Indiana. So there's a really great tradition of some quality craftsmanship of rye whiskey in Indiana. And now with the Indiana Artisan Distillery permit that came up about 7 years ago, some of those some of the producers in Indiana are kind of carrying that tradition forward, and Hard Truth being one of them. And the rye whiskey that we're producing right now is really, really outstanding. So, to use the same power that Kentucky did to find a designation for Kentucky bourbon and Tennessee for Tennessee whiskey, we wanted to protect and celebrate and be able to market Indiana rye whiskey to the world.
Excellent. I think that there is an important aspect there that it has these new craft distilleries, and I mean, there's literally thousands of new distilleries popping up in the US, and there is going to be that regionality, and it's nice to see that you guys are leading from the front and getting that protection.
Who decides that protection, Brian? Is it collectively the industry, or is it the government?
Well, we introduced the idea. So we looked at the powerful tool of not only protecting it for our state, but also getting our state behind, maybe with some dollars behind, helping us to promote and helping all the distilleries in Indiana to promote. But really, we've went to our state representative in our region of Indiana, and we told him what we were interested in. And it was really key for us to make sure that this act was not controversial in any way. So, the act is pretty broad. And what we wanted to do is we didn't want to exclude any of our partner Indiana distilleries that are producing rye. We wanted to kind of get everybody under this envelope and not make it specific to us. So we went to our state representative. He loved the idea. We helped him write up the act, and he put it through, and it passed. So really, the state of Indiana is the one that determines it. So then, what that sets is that now moving forward, if you're in Montana and you're making rye whiskey, and let's say 10 years down the road, Indiana rye whiskey is a very marketable, valuable thing. Mm-hmm. You can't put Indiana rye whiskey on a label unless it actually meets the designation that we've set forth.
Yeah, excellent. Now, your own distillery. What's the setup? Tell us about the Hard Truth. Where did the name come from for a start? It's a bit like something Justin would come out with, to be honest,
Yeah, it is. So there's about 3 different stories about how the name came to light, but I'll tell you the true one. One of my partners was actually driving around down in Florida, and there was a billboard, and it had a American football star on it who had I don't know, he was selling. Now he's in a law firm or selling insurance or something. And was he driving in
this yoke here? Was he driving in this little sort of gator car here? Was he? Is that road legal?
Yeah. No, he was driving around. I think he was selling. But anyways, the billboard said, "And that's the Hard Truth." And that was right when we had started bought our first stills. And he called the partners, and that's how the name got set.
And what sort of stills do you have?
Sure. So we're in Nashville, Indiana, about an hour south of Indianapolis and an hour north of Louisville. So Louisville, Kentucky. So we're actually very, very close to the epicenter of everything bourbon in the United States. And it's a beautiful little spot in Indiana. We've got 360 acres, so a lot of land, all deep hardwood forest. We carved out about 9 acres of it and put about a 30,000 square foot distillery. We have a Vendome Copper and Brass Works continuous column bourbon system. So it's a continuous column with a doubler. We also have a nice pot still with ability to make gin, rum, and then a vodka column as well. On the property, we have a tour center. We're very tour centric. We get a lot of visitors in our town. I think there's about 3.5 million visitors that come through our little town of 900 permanent residents a year. And so we have a great tour program. And then we also have a 260 seat restaurant with an outdoor eating pavilion that holds another 300 to 400, a music amphitheater. We got a little bit of everything there. If you come visit us and you don't have fun, it's your own fault.
Well, I mean, this must have been. I mean, there's only 900 residents. It must have been just a huge boom in the whole town.
Yeah, it's been a great evolution these last few years, and we're laying down about 2,000 barrels of whiskey now a year, split pretty evenly between bourbon and rye whiskey. Our rye whiskey we found is maturing a little bit faster, so as we move to get some cash flowing, we're making a lot of rye. It's delicious. I'm really excited about it.
Good. Now you do. I'm going to have to pull you. I'm going to have to bring this up because you've got an Irish whiskey for sale. Tell us about McCabe's Irish whiskey.
Yeah, sure. So one of the same partner that I was talking about that was driving around down in Florida, Jeff McCabe, is he comes from proud Irish heritage, and sometime I'm after we're done this evening, I'm going to tell him about this. I think he'd be great for you guys to have on. So Jeff McCabe, our Irish whiskey is named after him, and it's a 3-year-old Irish whiskey. It's really nice. I had about probably 8 to 10 different Irish whiskeys that I had available to choose from, and this one really stood out. It's so I'm not good at talking about the flavor characteristics of whiskey. I heard you earlier on your show. I've heard people referred to spanked leather as a tasting note. I'm not sure what that means, but I heard you mention something about leather. For me, for me, this whiskey is it's got a really nice. For me specifically, it's got a nice toasted grain characteristic. A little bit of cocoa in there. I really like this whiskey. Good. So we're pretty proud of it, and Jeff loves to sell it because it's got his name on it.
It sounds to me like a whiskey, forged in the Old West, like McCabe and Mrs. King, something like that. It's a great name.
Like it.
It's a great name. It is a great. I'm going to say it. Get off your horse, drink your milk.
I like that. I think you need a marketing job.
Yeah, do you need a marketing job? Yeah, I need a rather expensive Cadillac and $100,000 a year. Yeah,
and he doesn't work in the mornings. It doesn't do it in the morning. So if something in the late afternoon for a couple of hours, part time, with about $100,000 a year, but sit Justin down, no problem.
And I have to have time off to watch Jeopardy every day.
You can now understand why Justin's unemployed.
You got the gig.
Now, the McCabe. I read that McCabe's are the County Cavan, which is our part of the world. Yeah, it's up with us, up Ulster country. So you told me that you're going to develop the Irish connections. You can't divulge too much about it, but you're wanting to strengthen those and make it more of a feature in your product range and stuff.
Yeah, so that's one of the part of this project. The fact that it's difficult for me as a distiller to really choose liquid that's been produced by someone else, and for our brand, in order for us to tell our story, it's important for me to connect with the distillers that actually produce the product, and then the potential of collaboration. So we do a lot of experimentation at our distillery, a lot of barrel finishes. I know that's a pretty widespread activity now in the whiskey world, and we've come up with some really interesting techniques involving special chars and toasts, and then actually smoking the inside of barrels prior to resting aged whiskey in. We've got all kinds of different fun stuff we're doing. So what I'd love to do is the next step is Jeff and I are going to try to get over to Ireland and connect with the distillery and really go deeper and do some projects that connect Hard Truth Distilling Company and a distillery in Ireland. So if you have any distillers on your that are watching your show that are interested in getting in contact with us, you can go to hardtruthdistilling.com and go into the contact me and send a message to Brian Smith.
Well, put it like this: we know a guy who's getting his distillery built, and I'm sure if you could work out some way of getting him possibly some reasonably priced casks, he'd be more than happy. Not right, James. He's an award-winning distiller, blender of whiskey. So
nice.
A great guy. He's in the process of building a big distillery down in Donegal. So that's another Ulster distillery too. But what's your own background? How did you get into the distilling world, and how did you end up doing this?
It's funny. I get asked that question a lot, and I think that it seems like the answer to that question from most distillers is pretty varied. I don't come from the from a chemical engineering background, so I kind of came to the industry from the other direction, from more of a flavor creation. I grew up with a really incredibly talented grandmother who was an amazing cook, and I've got an aunt who's actually Japanese, and she was a very good cook, and so they both spent a lot of time with me in the kitchen. I love to create good flavors, and so that's something that's always been something I've enjoyed doing. My dad and his friends made wine twice a year. Made homemade sausages. A bunch of guys getting together and making tasty things. So that's something that I grew up doing. Again, I never saw an opportunity to.
You look the same here in high school as you do now in that photograph. You look exactly the same. You haven't changed in 20 years.
No.
It's the whiskey, you see, Justin. It's the whiskey. Whiskey keeps you immortal. I always tell you that.
That's right.
Whiskey's an elixir.
That's it. So long story short, I've always had a very deep passion for creating flavors. And then this opportunity presented itself. I used to brew beer in college a lot, and so fermentation and even some benchtop distillation was something I was pretty experienced with. So I had an opportunity, and I'll tell you what, for the last 6 years, I've buried myself in the craft, and it's just been an amazing ride. We've got this huge distillery. We've got 17 bottled products on the shelf right now. We're in 7 states, and we're getting ready to add about 20 states in the next 6 months. So it's been pretty incredible.
I'm sure just the logistics of the 20 states but they've all got all these different rules, so it must be just an absolute madness, Now, you said about your range. Now, your range, I'm going to run through just some of your range because it is a bit different. We'll just say it's a little bit different. You have I might mispronounce this because I think over the past while my brain has stopped working just the same. But Schoonover straight bourbon. You have Sips straight bourbon. Is that the way it's pronounced? You have rums. You have white oak rum, toasted coconut. Quite like the sound of that. Toasted coconut cream. You have vodka, cinnamon vodka. And this is the one. Whenever I mentioned this earlier on, Justin's face just went ding. He was all happy about this. Peanut butter whiskey. What on earth is peanut butter whiskey?
Well, so I knew you were going to ask me about this. So there is a spirit that's sold here in the United States that's doing very, very well. That is a peanut butter whiskey, and so my partners came to me, and I'm primarily responsible for the creation of all of our spirits in the project. So they came to me, and they really wanted me to create a peanut butter whiskey. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I really did not want to create a peanut butter whiskey. But as my wife says, when I came home grumbling about it, she said, well, if the biggest complaint of your job is being asked to make a kind of whiskey you don't want to make, then you probably should just be quiet. So I got into the lab, and my goal was, as in any spirit that I make, that has any kind of flavor element to it, is I want to make the best version of it possible. I want to use real ingredients, and I want to get a deep, authentic, natural flavor. So with our peanut butter whiskey, You know, when you open up that can of fresh peanut butter or fresh roasted peanuts, you know, that aroma is what off the whiskey. I also added a little sea salt, so you get a little bit of saline on it. It's you know, it's funny when we go out to sell it. You know, most people shake their heads or smile or say there's no way they're interested in it. And almost everybody brings it and sells it at their place. So it's been a fun one.
Justin, I think you would like that.
I think I maybe would like that, actually, because it's a wee bit different. It's like a pre-made cocktail, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
I like the toasted coconut rum. I quite famously don't have a very sweet tooth. I'm not a sweet person particularly, but I do like coconut stuff. So toasted coconut rum. What's that? How do you do that? What way do you make it?
Yeah. So sure. So this was born out of. We actually have a group of restaurants, and you know, our bar manager really wasn't pleased with the coconut rum that they had available behind the bar, and so asked me to work on something new. You know, whenever it's kind of the same philosophy with the peanut butter whiskey. I wanted to really create something that was really rich and flavorful, but natural tasting. With this toasted coconut, we actually get in organic coconut chips and we roast them in an oven until they're really, really dark brown. When you do that, the oils get lifted from the coconut, they get caramelized, and then we take molasses, 50% molasses, 50% raw sugar. We ferment and just double pot distill that to make our rum. So then we have that rum, we proof it down some, and then I rest those toasted coconut chips in that rum for 2 or 3 days. So what that does is that those oil from those coconut chips go into the rum. It adds some viscosity, some nice mouthfeel to the rum. But more importantly, you don't get that you know, suntan lotion coconut, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
It's more of a deep, rich, rounded. And then again, just like with the peanut butter whiskey, you know, my grandma taught me whenever you cook anything sweet, you know, you always have to balance it out with a little bit of salt. So there's a little sea salt in this as well. It's pretty amazing when people try it. We were just down in Florida selling, and in Florida there's a lot of coconut rums, and the response down there has been really, really great. So we're you know, who knew that some of the best rum in America was made in Indiana, right?
The Hoosier state. I like trying anything. I genuinely, because I know people do these products and they make these different flavors. But
would you try this, Marty? What is that yellow stuff in that vat there? What is that? Is that the peanut butter you're mixing with Chris McCabe there? He looks like a something from Yogi Bear there with this his 10-gallon hat on. What is that? Is that yellow mash, or what exactly is that? It looks like peanut butter.
Polenta.
Is that the picture with Jeff with the hat?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's a bourbon mash. That's actually a bourbon mash.
Okay, right. It's very yellow in color.
Yeah. The corn
I'll just explain this photograph.
For our bourbon mash really gets a nice. Yeah.
This is the senator. The senator who helped pass the legislation, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, Chris May. I apologize. Yeah, I'm not. Yep. Yes, that's Chris May and he was our state representative that we were talking about that really pushed through that bill to get it passed. Yeah,
cool. Now, all the different stuff you're doing is, I mean, it is amazing. The cinnamon vodka, is that quite fiery? Is it? Is that a throat burner?
You know, it's not. And there's another product in the U.S. that's done really well, cinnamon whiskey, and that's the thing about it is it's a really, you know, it's got that cinnamon flavor, but then it really burns on the way down. With the cinnamon whiskey or with our cinnamon vodka, with the vodka base, it's a very neutral base, so you get those bright, natural, botanical cinnamon flavors up front, but then it leaves your palate pretty quickly. So it's nice as an aperitif. It's nice as a cordial. It's great in cocktail. In our bar, one of our most popular selling cocktails is a tall glass of ice, cranberry juice, cinnamon vodka, and a squeeze of lime. We sell a ton of those.
Justin, would you like that?
I do. This exotic range of products really floats my boat, Brian, because I do like something a wee bit different. The cinnamon is the thing that I like the sound of even more than the peanut butter.
Right. Good. I'll have to send you guys some bottles.
Yeah, please do. Now, Justin's our cocktail guy, by the way. I'm not really a cocktail. I'm a bit more of a purist. But Justin likes something with a wee sparkly umbrella, and a wee, like an olive or a cherry or something on it. That's his day made. Now, Justin's showing up the lineup of all the different spirits. I will just say, by the way, that James Doherty, who's the guy behind the Dark Silky, says, I'm game for having a chat about doing something in the future with an Irish distiller with your good self. So trust me, you won't be disappointed with James.
Excellent.
So we can. I feel a bit like that blind date. Where you sort of where you get like these relationships built up. It's quite good. Now, what's your favorite out of your lineup? Out of everything that if you had to pick out of your lineup, what's the one you reach for, and why?
So with the products that we currently have on the shelf right now, my favorite is the Sipes Straight Bourbon Whiskey finished in a smoked barrel. That was the project that I talked to you about earlier. So our barrel manufacturer and I, worked together on this new project with using smoked barrels. So as opposed to like a peated whiskey or a whiskey where the grains have been smoked in any kind of way, using a smoked barrel is a lot more delicate of an impact on the whiskey. And then when you've got the heavy toast and light char, you're also going to get some more barrel sugars that get to the whiskey along with the smoke. So right now, this guy right here, Sipes Straight Bourbon Whiskey finished in a smoked barrel, is my favorite sipper. It's really complex, a great bourbon, and again at the end, it's almost like the smoke is. I describe it more like a campfire smolder than a real smoky peat. It's delicious.
I think you and James are going to get on very well together because James is a big peat fan. James likes his smoky. That's why this is winning awards, because it's an Irish whiskey with a little bit of peat on it. And it's got that little bit of peat in it to give it a nice little bit of complexity without dominating. It's not a peat. It's a peated whiskey, but just a little bit, and it just gives that nice little bit of complexity. You and him will get on okay, so you will. Now,
I like complexity and balance. Complexity and balance are my two big tenets that I'm always working toward.
No, well, I agree. For me, when I read tasting notes and stuff, and some of the other stuff, they always leave out mouthfeel. And mouthfeel, to me, is really, really important because it helps the finish so much. If you've got a nice, oily, good-bodied whiskey, the finish is better. And to be honest, the nose is important to me, and the finish is probably more important. The actual taste, the taste to me is not that important. It's important, obviously, because it plays a part in the other two. But the nose and the finish, if I have something with a nice long development finish, that's more important than the initial taste that comes in your mouth, because it's the development that you're really looking for, and that's what you want in a complex whiskey.
I'm with you on that. The mouthfeel is huge, especially with bourbon and rye whiskeys.
Yeah. Now between rye and pot still whiskey, rye whiskey has that spicy, peppery thing, more so necessarily than than pot still. But pot still kind of famously has that spicy little kick. Irish pot still. Rye just takes it to another level, really. So how, without prying too much, what's your mash bill for your rye whiskies?
So the great thing about the size of our distillery is we're large enough to make enough juice to be significant, but small enough to where I still have the ability to make lots of different varieties. So currently I have about 6 rye mash bills. And so our intent as we release our own rye whiskey is to have, an ever evolving series of, individual mash bills and yeast strains that we will release as, one batch expression. But then also having all those different mash bills and yeast strains, I have the ability, it's like ingredients in making a soup or a gumbo, it's, I'm going to have all these different flavor components to be able to blend together.
Yeah.
So, as opposed to just being one thing, like Jack Daniel's whiskey, we're really going to be built on different expressions. And I will tell you that the rye, most people's perception of what rye whiskey is, if they're not all that familiar with it, it's kind of like anything else. There's such a wide variety of rye whiskey flavors out there. And so to answer your question, I've got 6 mash bills, and it ranges everywhere from 100% rye to, some malted rye. And then also we have, obviously some mash bills that have corn, malted barley and or wheat added as a supplemental grain to the rye. But really, with rye, it's about the craft and traditions that are set forth, which really, a lot of them have been perfected here in Indiana, of getting the fermentation correct and the distillation correct, because rye is notoriously very difficult to work with. It likes to foam. It likes to create a mess. It sticks to everything. It's kind of a beast, but boy, it's delicious.
I see the excitement on your face. Did you see Justin's face whenever you said the word gumbo? Yeah, he just popped up. His wee head popped up. He's all excited.
Yeah. I've had it. I thought I was in Forrest Gump Part 3 or whatever it's called now. They did 1 and they did 2. I think. I was down by the bow there. On a jet boat. Shooting crocodiles. Poof.
Oh, he's mad.
Hey, you guys worked alligator and crocodile both into one podcast.
Hey, listen, we can work anything into this thing at all. Listen, we're even about to speak to Greg Oliver from Chasing Whiskey, all about Jack D. We can even bring Jack Daniels into a pure whiskey show. We'll get the Coke out next, and the umbrellas, and the ice cubes.
Justin, you've preempted me, my boy, once again. Now, people think this is rehearsed, and honestly, we don't rehearse this. You might not be sure of this, but we don't. Ta-da!
This is probably a world first.
This is a world first.
He's got the Jack Daniels out. Greg Oliver's with us now. Can you hear us, Greg? Good evening.
I can. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Clear, yeah.
Nice to meet you guys.
I'll introduce everybody. Brian. This is Brian from the Truth Distillery. Greg Oliver.
Hey, Brian.
Oliver from the director of Chasing Whiskey, the story of Jack Daniels. Now, how are you, Greg?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Now, we've watched the documentary. Both Justin and I have watched the documentary. I've watched it twice, actually. And I have to say, it's quite moving in places, because the people talking about, you can tell the obvious love that the people working in Jack Daniels actually have for it. Because you're talking to people that are maybe 4th generation who've worked there. And the story of Jack Daniels is actually a bit more... Chasing Whiskey is a little bit more than just Jack Daniels. It's a story of people, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was tricky. How do you make a film about a brand, right? It was like a challenge. Can't make it about a bottle of whiskey. So it had to be about the people that made it. And then we wanted to find the people that loved it so much, because a brand that big must have love all over the world. So we traveled all over the world to find fans and find out why they had like Jack tattooed on them and that sort of thing. So it was like it's definitely a movie about people, and people out there. There's a lot of whiskey lovers, any kind of whiskey. It's like really amazing to see how passionate folks are about whiskey all over the world.
Exactly. And we've just been talking to Brian, and you can tell Brian has passion for his craft, and the fact that whiskey has that regionality. Brian, we're talking about the Indiana rye whiskey is now protected by law, and the fact that Jack Daniel's so invested in the little town that it comes from, it's just it's there on the label of every
Brian's
bottle.
town's also very small, Marty. Did you notice that? Brian, your town's not very big either, is it?
I'm sorry?
Your town isn't very big either. It's a bit like Lynchburg. It's a small community.
Right, 980 permanent residents with over 3 to 4 million visitors a year.
That's a lot. Greg, how many go through Lynchburg in a year, would you say?
Oh, I wish I knew. I mean, the town's really tiny. It's only like a few hundred folks that live there, right? It's But I know like there's so many people that go through there because of the distillery and like the tours. When we were filming, there was just a river of people coming and going. But I must be millions across the year, right? Coming and going, I would assume.
But it's bound to be. It's bound to be.
Yeah.
I mean, there's actually a quote in the film where it says that the film should really be a family movie. Really, it's about a whiskey, but it's really a family movie, and it's funny because Jack Daniels, let's be honest, in terms of stories, the people who have drank Jack Daniels can tell stories. Okay?
Yeah.
Whenever you talk about your Frank Sinatras, your Lemmy from Motorhead, who we'll talk about in a minute, I mean, it's just, there can't be another whiskey like it. There really can't be.
I mean, I feel like whiskey, it's a lot of whiskey brands are the story behind it. It's like, everyone loves a good story and something. If something behind a bottle means something to them, it gives them like an idea in their head of how it was made or the place it was made. And it's like, the where a Scotch is made is important. It was really fun to dig into those stories and see how deep they go. And as far as like history, Jack Daniel's is kind of hard to beat with that many layers of history and that much, all the generations working there and all the generations of people that had grandfathers that drank it and passed it down. So there's that guy. Yeah, that guy right there. We were in Cuba, and if you don't mind me just telling the story real quick, we went to Cuba. Please. We wanted to go to places. I wanted to go somewhere where it was hard to find Jack Daniels, and it's actually hard to find a lot of American products in Cuba for all sorts of reasons. But we went to an after-hours bar at like 3:00 in the morning, and this guy was one of the bouncers that didn't want me to come into the bar. And then we found out that he had that tattoo on his arm, and we couldn't believe it, and asked if we could come back the next day and interview him. And he's just, a guy living in Havana that works at bars and loves Jack Daniels. And I'm like, why do you love it so much? He's like, I just know that a lot of hard work went into that, and the people that make it work really hard, and it just represents something real to me. And I was like, that's pretty amazing that, people all over the world, random corners of the world, feel that way.
Jack Daniels basically got you VIP then the next night.
Yeah, it did. It was like
passport Jack.
Yeah, it was fun to be working for Jack and go into. The only place we weren't welcome was in like Kentucky, obviously, and there's a lot of bars there that they didn't want us in. Yeah.
Now, there's a few. It's a really sort of moving story in many ways, because when the people are talking about it and the passion that they have for working there. And you can see the two sisters. I have their names down here, Jackie and Debbie Staples.
Yeah.
And when they come across as real passionate about where they're from, and it's easy to do it when it's a small brand. It's easy to be really invested in a really small brand, and you get that sort of quaintness and that kind of thing. But when it's a huge mega corporation like Jack Daniels, and to still see that passion and the tattoos and the people that work there, it comes across really well in the film. It really does.
Yeah, Jackie and Debbie, like as you mentioned, they were we were filming the film, and then I started hearing the stories of Nearest Green and how there was a slave that taught Jack Daniels when he was like 9 years old how to make whiskey. And this guy named Nearest Green, and then that Jack hired his sons to work with him, back then when he started the distillery. And then someone's like, oh yeah, that guy over there is his great-great-grand nephew. I'm like, really? And then went and talked to him, and then Jackie and Debbie became in the film, and they were just so excited to talk about the history. And they told, it's not in the film, but they told me that a lot of people for a while didn't believe them when they said they were related to Nearest Green that taught Jack Daniels how to make whiskey. And it was sort of this myth that was around that no one really was sure of. And then only in the past couple of years that people really put all the history together and find out that there's like multiple descendants of Jack Daniels and of Nearest Green who taught him how to make it, still working there, and they're super passionate, man. They love working there. It is a family to them. It's really rare, I think, right? How many other companies that big would have that?
It's only whiskey can do it. I mean, I say that from day one. It's only whiskey can do it. You can't do it with vodka and gin and maybe possibly rum on a little part, but you can't really do it with anything other than whiskey.
Brian, do you think there'll be a rivalry between the whiskey regions of America whenever it gets more established over the years? And it won't be the brands like Jack Daniels and Kentucky Bourbon. It'll be sort of one area against the other. It is like here in Scotland and Ireland, and between the Scottish regions.
Absolutely.
Good.
100%.
Nice.
Well, listen, Brian, it's been great having you on. We will move on to talk to Greg Oliver. Thank you very much for keeping us up to date with the Hard Truth Distillery, and keep us up to date with everything that's happening.
And
thanks, you guys.
I'll get James. I'll tag you in an email or something, and the two of you get together, because the fact that you like smoke and stuff, we've made a connection. Justin, I feel like there should be some sort of music playing,
All right. All right. Catch you later, Brian. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Brian, take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate
it.
Now, Greg, I have to have... This is about the only cocktail that normally...
Where'd he go?
We're drinking Jack Daniels and Coke.
Cheers. I'm drinking just Jack because I don't have any Coke. I have Coke Zero here, but I don't know how that would taste with. That's kind of a bad idea.
Well, no, I'd be honest, right? And I know this is sort of sacrilege, but I normally drink Diet Coke because ordinary Coke's too sweet for me. So I drink Diet Coke. But I've tried Diet Coke and Coke Zero and all that in the Jack Daniels and Coke, and it just doesn't work.
No,
it just doesn't.
No, I don't want to do that.
No, you don't want to do it.
I like a nice highball though, like a seltzer highball with Jack. That works pretty well, or any whiskey actually.
Yes. Now, what made you decide to do the documentary on Jack Daniels? Why? How did that come about?
I mean, I'm a filmmaker. I've been making documentaries for like over a decade. The first film that I made that actually came out was the one on Lemmy that you mentioned in Motorhead, and spent 3 years making that film, and it came out in 2010, and it's sort of like put me in this like genre of like tough guy rock and roll kind of things. I don't get much fashion work. So every once in a while a job will come up. I did like a blues documentary on Johnny Winter, but Lemmy and those guys had Jack Daniels with them everywhere we went. And looking back on it, I wish I filmed more of it, because it was just literally every room Lemmy would be in, there was Jack Daniels around everywhere, like on his stacks on stage, in his dressing room. And so then when someone said, hey, we want to throw your name into the ring for a Jack Daniels film, I was like, that's something I definitely could get behind. But it also sounded like a challenge, like I'd never made a movie about a brand before.
Yeah.
And I was a little nervous about it. I'm like, I don't know how we're going to tackle it and make it something relatable. But like you said, once you just dig into the humans behind it, then we can all relate to folks that are making it or drinking it. And I just wanted to go on but that's, been making films for a long time. And it just I had to fight for the job with I think it was 50 directors they were looking at, and then they narrowed it down to 5. And I went and met with the president of Jack Daniels. And I had to go into like a boardroom full of a lot of intimidating looking folks and nice pressed shirts. And they said, how do you make a film about Jack Daniels? And I said, if any filmmaker walks in here and tells you they know how to make a film about Jack Daniels, are full of shit.
Good man.
And and I was like, including me. So
Here,
let's just work on it together.
No profanities, or otherwise we'll be getting Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg doesn't like us.
The woke people will be after us.
They're full of beep.
Justin, bring up that picture in full screen of Lemmy.
That one there with the guns.
Oh, yes.
Yep, that's Wes and I. Wes Orshowski on my right, and that's me on the left on Lemmy's couch in his Los Angeles apartment. And what you can't see are glasses of Jack Daniels somewhere in the foreground.
I mean, how cool was he? Was he as cool as I sort of think he?
Yeah, he was. Man, he was not an easy guy to work with. Like he wasn't like, oh hey guys, come on in, let's make a movie. But he was a fun. He was everything you'd expect, and he didn't make it easy on us. But I like that for it. It was like a challenge, and I think it made me a better filmmaker to have things not go so smoothly. You know. So,
this was your first film.
I had worked on done a lot of music videos and things before that, and then I was working on a reggae documentary that fell apart, and then I met Lemmy. So it was like the first successful film that I finished.
There's nothing like getting yourself thrown in at the deep end, like.
Yeah, especially when you get there. Yeah, when you go in on the road with Motorhead, it's like there's no going back. So.
I can't imagine. Now, Jack Daniels is a brand. It's associated. I love this quote. I can't express just how much I enjoyed this quote. It's whenever the two guys turned around and they said, when you mention Tennessee, people think of Elvis, Dolly, and Jack. And it's just, unbelievable. You know, it's fabulous.
Yeah, I mean, there's characters, wow. Right? You guys you can't write those lines. I know those guys probably said that a million times, but those are their own lines. Like, no one wrote that, you know. And that's why it's such gold to hang out with these guys that are making the whiskey. You're like, oh, yeah, of course you guys work here for Jack Daniels.
Of course, but I mean, to be associated with Elvis Presley and Dolly Parton. This I don't know whether I've ever said this in public before, but when my son was born, there was a serious debate that his middle name might be Elvis, and I'm being serious. I was.
Yeah, that's a good name.
There was going to call his first name is Michael, named after his grandfather, and then I was going to call him Michael Elvis Macaulay. But I sort of relented. I thought no, because there's two sort of hipstery stuff. But no, he was almost called Elvis because he is without question the coolest man in history. Absolutely. Now, a few other things, and in it, there's actually a few things in it that show just the craft that goes into Jack Daniels. I know it's a mega brand, but there's some craft stuff that goes into it that it all has to be made the same way. The live yeast culture, which is kept by them, it's cultured and it stays the same and has done since Prohibition. That's something that doesn't necessarily happen in a lot of the distilleries in Scotland or Ireland. You know, the focus on yeast. You also have the charcoal mellowing, and that can take actually up to a week to go through the charcoal beds, and that's something you would expect from a much smaller brand, and to do it on the scale of Jack Daniels is enormous.
Oh yeah, I imagine they could save a ton of time and a ton of money if they didn't charcoal filter it, right? There's definitely ways to like cut corners and cheapen things and crank whiskey out fast, and they'd probably save tens of millions of dollars a year, but they don't. And I didn't know a ton about the whiskey when I got the film. Same like with Lemmy, I wasn't like a Motorhead fan when I did that, and I came out the other end loving it. And then so I approach every film like sort of a naive outsider, so I can really try to understand it. And one of the things I said I wanted to do was film every bit of the process so I could really see for myself. And they said, you can go wherever you want, film anything you want. The president told me that. He said, if anybody tries to stop you, call me. And so I have the president's cell phone number, and I only had to do it one time. And I wanted, so we filmed every bit of it, and it was like every step of the way, the guys making the charcoal was such a fascinating thing to watch and see how those guys, that little group is so passionate about how they make their charcoal, and they're so good at it, getting in the perfect little size and then filling up these giant like chutes full of it.
Access all areas is very rare for a big corporation, isn't it? Having carte blanche to film whatever you want.
Oh, I bet this will never happen to me again in my lifetime, right? Who's going to be like, yeah, go film whatever you want? Those guys were truly said, we have nothing to hide. I mean, the only thing that they were nervous about was the palletized warehouses that you see in the film.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you actually showed that, because it was nice that there was almost that bit of, we don't really want to show this.
It was a juxtaposition. There was a contrast between the traditional in the museum side of things and the actual, they're upright. It doesn't make any difference. It's still fantastic, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely some they were like easy. It took a little while to get to film that, and then it was harder to keep it in the edit of the film. Once all the corporate folks got to watch it, they're like, "Oh man, does this really need to go in the film?" And I was like, "I don't, it's not showing it. It's a surprise to folks because you're rolling the barrels and all the commercials, but let's show how big this company really is. I mean, you're feeding the world." They wanted to prove that it was all made in Lynchburg. I'm like, let's show how it's all in Lynchburg. So that's that shot where the guy's walking through like tens of thousands of barrels. Looks like the end of Indiana Jones, I love that they put it in there. Originally, they wanted to put it first, and then you'd see the guys rolling the barrels, so you kind of forget about it. I'm like, no, show it in the way that I want to show it, and then it's really makes it a well-rounded film if you can really be proud of that. And ultimately, they left it in, and I love that it's in there. And but that was like the one thing they weren't sure of me filming, but everything else, they're like, yeah, come film it.
I think it's much more honest to have it there because I mean these days everybody's talking about waste and so on, and everybody on a scale, anybody that's above a certain scale, all do this, and why hide it? Just tell people that's what you do.
Well, sure.
Honesty's best policy.
More Guinness is made in Nigeria than anywhere else, isn't it? Something like that, Marty, isn't it? Yeah.
I think we need to be careful with that, Justin, in case Diageo starts suing us for something.
All right.
Maybe true.
We'll fact check later on, but
but Jack is proud that they don't make it in any other country. It's all made in. They said a lot of people don't believe that it's all made there, so I'm like, let's do our best to prove it. So you can't keep going wider, then you got to go a little higher, right? So that's why they're stacking them higher. It makes total sense. Everybody
does it. They should talk to the Scotch bonnet guys. The thing on these guys, they put this little. It's hardboard made that they put over that stops the angel share. It cuts down the angel share.
Yeah,
just talk to them. They'll save a fortune.
but I don't think the white oak barrels leak the same because the pores are so tight anyway. Do they really?
No, they all do, Justin. They all do.
Do they?
I think slower, right? I mean, that's why Scotch. When we saw the film, we went to Glenmorangie, and I didn't know that like a lot of Scotch is all made in used bourbon barrels because like the local oak there is too porous, right? So
plus it's much cheaper, cheaper because they buy the barrels for I think it's about 120, 130 pounds, and they actually try and buy them, get them made anywhere else. And with all the new whiskey distilleries over there, there's lots of ex-bourbon barrels, and they'll start to see lots of ex-rye barrels and all this kind of stuff happening very soon. Whenever we're talking to Brian, now there's some brilliant quotes in the film. There's some brilliant ones. The one where a guy says Taylor Swift wins a lot of awards. Jack Daniels, they don't win the awards. The best Scottish or best American whiskey and any of that kind of thing. But Taylor Swift wins lots of awards. What's the other one? If musicians all drank Jim Beam, they would all sound like Kid Rock.
Oh, that's one of my favorite ones, man. That's from Shooter Jennings in the studio saying that. And that was like another moment not rehearsed. They did the soundtrack. I was filming them doing the soundtrack in the studio. And it was like 2:00 in the morning. We were all drinking a lot. I'm like, let's just talk real quick on camera while we have a break. And I threw that question out, and that answer was so good. And it's so great to hear these funny quotes just come out off the cuff like that. The Taylor Swift one was not rehearsed either.
It's funny. It is funny. Part of the film is how far away Jack reaches. So it follows a container ship all the way to Tilpa, Australia. This tiny little town.
Yeah, Tilpa.
That's just funny.
Yeah, that was part of my pitch. I told when I got the gig, the president of Jack Daniels, I said, "What do you want to make ssure comes out of this film?" He said, a lot of people don't think that Jack is a real person. And I said, I'll do my best to prove that, but I can't. But he said, a lot of people don't believe that it's all made in Lynchburg. And I said, well, why don't we film it being made and then film an actual order, get shipped to the really far corner of the earth, and that'll at least prove that it's getting shipped that far. Otherwise, why, I'll film every single step of the way.
Yeah.
And so we were looking for a place. It was really hard to set that up, as you can imagine. I mean, we had the cooperation of.
Did you have an A and a B team? Did the B team follow the container all the way to Australia while you did other things, or did you have to?
No, believe it or not, we only had an A team the whole time. It was three of us. That me, cinematographer, and an assistant camera that would fly the drone to shoot that. and then there'd be a couple producers with us, but it was just a 3-person crew. So what I did that so we could go more places, right? If you have a bigger crew, then you lose your money. Then Greg doesn't get to go to Cuba, Australia. Greg wanted to go everywhere. So.
Or Japan to film these Elvis impersonators or Teddy boys. They're the strangest folk I've ever seen. I've seen them in other documentaries. They are weird, guys. They are weird. Now, I don't think they are cool. But I definitely think that Frank Sinatra getting out of a helicopter with a Jack D in hand, that's cool. That is cool.
I'm associated. Look, it's almost the same pose. Me sitting here in a chair, just walking out. So cool. So cool.
Yeah, it's hard to beat that level of coolness, man. But it's got to start somewhere, right? And everybody else strives to be that cool. So
the bit where the American guys who are quite obviously well oiled, shall we say, are doing the karaoke, and then it cuts to the Japanese guys doing the karaoke. I absolutely burst out laughing. I thought it was so funny.
That was when that happened. When those guys did karaoke, I was like, this is going to turn into the best moment in the film. Right when I saw them do that, we didn't tell them to do it. I'm like, what are you guys going to do? And they're like, we're going to do a little karaoke, film it. And I was like, because we already knew we were going to Tokyo. I'm like, this is going to be such a great moment. And then that's actually the karaoke room from that movie, Lost in Translation, with Bill Murray.
Wow, he should have won the Oscar for that. That's a seminal movie. He should have won the Oscar for that.
I know, that's great.
And Scarlett Johansson was something else in that movie. I cried. I cried in that movie.
Yeah. Well, I cried when we stepped into the room. We stepped into the room. Like for me as a filmmaker, you step into like a famous set where some movie like that was filmed. I was like, whoa, this is where they filmed it. It was so wonderful being there.
Well, I'm going to tell you something about Japanese whiskey. I went for a job interview at a radio station in 2006 in Fort William, and we were staying in the hotel, and I happened to say, what's that behind the bar there? What's that? I've never seen that before. And it was a fake whiskey, which a Japanese production crew had put behind the bar, and it was obviously something else in the bottle. Do you know what? We drank it. I don't even think we had to pay for it. It'd been sitting there for years, but it was bloody good, and it was from one of those like faked up movies of the fake whiskey. Sorry. I just love anything to do with Japan and whiskey. It makes me happy.
I think you also love a freebie, Justin. Let's be honest.
Well, who doesn't?
he had a £5,000 freebie the other day. He had a whiskey, £5,000 it cost.
Justin, I was not the master of my own destiny during that. You were the one that chose to drive. You were the one that done all the tech stuff. I had to work. I had to interview and all, Justin. So I think it was a just reward.
Now you met Frank Sinatra's daughter, right? You've met Frank Sinatra's daughter. I didn't know she had another daughter. I thought it was only Nancy Sinatra, kinky boots or whatever. Yeah. Or these boots were made for what? I didn't know he had another daughter. But you also met, who'd you meet there? The guy that played
Otter.
Yeah. In the
Tim Matheson.
The Belushi movie. Yeah. He was up for it. But the guy that really caught my attention, we flicked through Australia here, we flicked through the container ship, was the guy that wrote the books. Did he not just say to you, your documentary was that good, I want you to make a movie with me?
No, he was actually hard to pin down. We were because he writes a lot of Jack Daniels into his books, and so we were trying to find someone that used it in literature as well as films, and we were trying to bug him for an interview. And I think the folks at Jack offered, tried to get him in. We didn't pay anybody to be in the film, which is a fun thing because Jack never pays celebrities to like hold the product, never. And so we didn't. There's a lot of big actors we tried to get in the film, and they wanted a lot of money, and we're like, we're not paying anybody, man. It's a documentary. Whether you like it or not, we're not in it or not. So anybody in the film was not paid. And so it took a while to get these folks to be like, oh, this is cool. This will be a cool film. No one else is getting paid. And he was awesome. We went to his office where he writes and just sat down and he just started talking and ended up being like a really great character in the film and just big, whiskey fan and uses the idea of like a whiskey to sort of enhance a scene, I think, as he says in his books, So yeah, he was a really friendly character, and then he reads the whiskey speech at the end, which I personally love that part of it.
Yeah, Judge Sweat. I thought that was fantastic. That it's the balance of probabilities. Make your own mind up about whether whiskey's good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, I know people in this country put whiskey in children's teeth. Don't do this at home. To soothe them.
And not recommended by the medical fraternity, by the way.
And they also give whiskey when you've got a cold here. Hot toddy for a cold here. And it seemed to me that everybody in the movie, old stars, new stars, big stars, wee stars, the good old boys that work for the company, they really feel passionate about it. Really, really passionate. And nobody seems like they're acting.
No, I mean, that's what's so great. Like, John Grisham doesn't need doesn't need our press from our film. He's just cranking away books, and he's like feels passionate. That's why he ended up doing it. Everybody that's in the film had a true passion for the brand, and that's what it weeded out the folks that saw it as like, oh, I'm going to be in this film, so I'm going to charge them, And then those are the folks that immediately got shoved to the side, and now we have the real deal, the real lovers of the brand are in it. That's what makes it a special film for me. That we got the right folks are in the film. You know what I mean?
Now, I have to slag you off a bit. You know what slagging off is, Greg? Do
I can't remember if that's good or bad, man. I've been to Ireland a few times. I can't remember if it's good or bad. Probably not good.
Probably bad, but it's funny.
No. If you don't get slagged off in Ireland, that means we don't like you. If we do slag you off, that means we do like you. Why is it that every single statue in America looks like every single other statue in America? Because that guy could be Colonel Saunders, it could be Jack Daniels, it could be Mark Twain, it could be one of the presidents, it could be one of the statues in the rotunda.
It's the facial hair, Justin.
At the Capitol building. They always look like they're made for a Hollywood movie. Whereas statues in Britain and Ireland, Europe, always look like they're different.
There's only one statue that's ever in the movies. That's why. I don't even know if that's really a Jack Daniels statue. It's the same footage from another movie.
Is it like the plane that crashes in the movie? It's always the same numbers because somebody doesn't ring up and say, I've seen a plane crash. I've seen a plane crash. Oh, boy.
Yeah, but you're right. Statues that kind of could be looking like Jack Daniels. I'm not sure. It's pretty cool, though, there. It's sitting in front of the cave that we got to go into. So it's a cool statue, whether it does look like every other statue, though. You're right. I didn't make it, man. I just made the movie. That statue's not my fault.
All right.
Now we have to talk a bit more about Lemmy because the whole Jack Daniels. I saw Lemmy. He was being interviewed by somebody else at the competition where somebody says, "Do you not eat breakfast?" And he lifted up a drink of Jack Daniels. He says, "It is breakfast." Now, I just want to know a bit more about him. What was he like?
Like his diet,
just everything, because the thing about it is this is for in the film you have Slash from Guns N' Roses, you have Frank Sinatra, you have Paul Newman, you have Lemmy, and it's just these really cool people drinking Jack Daniels, and it's just even just sort of think being associated with these guys, that's pretty cool,
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely a cool that oozes from every one of the folks in this film. Like from Tina Sinatra, Frank's daughter, to like Shooter Jennings, to everybody. To Lemmy, we had Lemmy's bass tech, this guy Tim Butcher, who's a friend of Lemmy. We were able to interview him and then use some footage from my Lemmy documentary. And Eric Church is in the film, and he's just like, he said his granddad drank it, and I believe him. That guy loves Jack more than anybody right now. He's selling out arenas in America. But yeah, everybody was really cool. Just sort of like gravitate towards a brand like that, which is interesting, and that sort of helps feed the brand's identity, while the brand also helps make everybody look cool.
Yeah, it's fabulous. Now, the film, I recommend it. I really do. I think it's a wonderful tale. It's cool. It's slick, and it's a family movie too, because the Jack Daniels family is a very extended family, but it's still a family. So, how do people get it? Can they download it? Do they get it Amazon? Yeah, and how much is it?
Right now, it's like funny. I think it's spreading from country to country. It's definitely out domestically on like Amazon, Apple TV, Google Play, and a few other spots. And I think probably Apple TV and iTunes over in the UK. But it's coming. The whole world needs it. Obviously, it just takes a little while. It's all streaming right now. Yeah. It was supposed to be out in theaters last year, and then because of COVID, we waited. But it's coming, and it's for rent and to buy. And like you're describing, I feel like people look at it and they're not sure if they want to watch a movie about a whiskey, but then as soon as you start watching it, you realize it's so much more than that, and it's about people and culture and love and history and family, and it's kind of all wrapped up in there. And the fun, I wanted to make sure it was a fun adventure. Like you see these characters, we went all over the world, so the least you're going to get out of it is a good wild ride all over the world to places you might not ever get to go.
There's a couple of really cracking bits on it. As I say, the karaoke bit, I was on the floor laughing. I thought it was hilarious.
These two big guys have 41 years service. They actually got the full shave in the next town for the movie, and went round into his wife's restaurant with a fried chicken. You know what? I'd love to hang out with them just to get some buttermilk fried chicken. You know what I mean?
So good, man. You guys got to go. If you've never been to Lynchburg and you have an opportunity to go, that's Goose that went to eat the chicken in Randall. And I was just like, I know this guy knows how to eat well, man. So I was like, where are we going to eat today? And then he's like, we're going to go steal some chicken from the kitchen of this restaurant. I'm like, let's go. They're so good. They're such good characters. They're such colorful, like amazing characters that you would put in a movie and people wouldn't believe them.
They're almost too good to be true.
Yeah, I mean,
they look like they've come from Central Casting.
I know, but that's why it's like people don't believe. People are spoiled by Hollywood movies. They'll watch it and be like, they'll think we cast them, but they're there. They're probably sitting in those chairs right now. They sit in this house on the property, and if you're like a Jack Squire, which is basically like the fan, like you're in the Jack family. If you're a Squire, you go to this house, and Goose and Randall are there, and they'll just sit there and tell you stories and hang out with them. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it like a frat house? Is it? Yeah.
No, it's much mellower than that. It's like I feel like a frat house is based on like bad alcohol, cheap alcohol. Jack Daniels is more like a mellow vibe there, man. Very mature.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I look forward to seeing what you do next. I know you've made a horror film as well. An award-winning horror film.
I made a horror film in like 2011 called Devoured, which was a lot of fun. But I mean, before you like make a film, it's like my friend owns a restaurant. He said we could film in there, and we wrote a movie about this restaurant having possible horror things happen. So we had to shoot at night there for like 28 days, and I wouldn't. If I could go back in time, I'd write a movie on the beach somewhere, because the last thing you want to do is hang out in the basement of a restaurant for 28 nights. It was a terrible idea. But we're making a movie. We're making a biopic on Lemmy that we're shooting next fall, like with actors. So we'll be in the UK filming that next fall. Yeah.
Well, do us a favor, pop over and see us. And I wish you a success. I really enjoyed the film. So did Justin. Thank you very much for joining us, Greg.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Enjoy your
night. Take care, buddy.
All right.
Take care.
All
bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye. Cheerio. Cheerio. Bye-bye. Well, Marty, what did you think of that?
Now, if you haven't watched the film, honestly, go and download it, because it's a real fun, involved. You buy into the whole thing, and put it like this: Elvis, Dolly, and Jack. What more do you need, Justin? Honestly.
No, not a lot more. Not a lot more.
No.
But there you go. So we better tell people what we're doing on Monday night.
On Monday.
We have a special edition coming up on Monday, don't we?
We have a special coming up on Monday. Now, I've left it to Justin to tell me what time we're on at, because I don't actually know.
We might go earlier so as people in Europe can see it. Because somebody in Belgium said they were in bed when we were on. Yes. I don't know what that's about, because like it's only 1 hour ahead. I mean, it's only 12:30 in Belgium now, right?
I know. So, Justin, lots of people like cocoa and go to bed. They don't like to sit. People who drink Jack Daniels, right? People who drink Jack Daniels don't go to bed at 12 o'clock, but they're not normal people. That's just Lemmy from Motorhead. I was thinking about this the other day, right? You imagine going on. We made connections tonight. I feel like Cilla Black from Blind Date. James and Brian's going to make up. Blah blah blah. Imagine you're doing speed dating, and somebody sits there. You're going to go out partying with the whiskey nerds, okay? And somebody sits down and he asks them, "What's your favourite whiskey?" And the guy goes, "Glenmorangie." You go, "All right, okay." He likes a nice, light, honeyed sort of style whiskey. Okay, dead on, good man, dead on. Next guy sits down and he goes, "Oh, I like Waterford. I like the organic Gaia at 1.1, and you go, oh, excellent. He knows his stuff. Maybe environmentally friendly. Maybe he's a little bit enamoured of Grace from last week. I think we're all a wee bit enamoured of Grace from last week. And you think, oh, dead on. The next guy sits down and says, I drank Jack Daniels. All right, we have a winner. Let's go. Because you might end up in a bin, but you know you've got to have a good night when you drink Jack Daniels. Fair enough.
Yes, I know. Listen, this is where we were. Does people know where that is?
The island town
of Enniskillen. That's the water.
Lakeland.
Enniskillen Castle. We were in Blake's of the Hollow. Yep. We are going to go to Blake 7, which is the 7 floors. Always wanted to be in Blake 7. We were talking to the lady of the establishment.
We were down the other day and we saw Bernie because she has a whiskey for sale, a Pars 19-year-old. And we went down. The pubs weren't open. We went in. It was all social distancing and all. And we had an interview with Bernie, and she was telling us about what they've done to the place, what they're doing, and some exciting things that are going to happen going forward. So tune in on Monday night. We'll do a nice recorded interview. But me and Justin, I'll tell you the tale of the bargain bucket because it's dead funny. It's dead funny.
That's it. This is where we're going. You'll recognize the pub. You've probably been there yourself. And we'll see you at 7 p.m. Monday night. And it's a full show again. We'll do a little bit of preamble. We'll hit play. Then you can tell us what you think of the show. And then you can tell us whether you're going to splash out 5 big ones on it. Yeah. 5 big ones on it. Because you actually give one of these whiskies a 10 out of 10 before, didn't you, Marty?
I did. It was they have the Middleton. They have a Middleton single cask for sale. And when I reviewed it, well, I suppose it's 2 years ago now, what I said was it's a 10 out of 10 whiskey because it's probably as good as Irish whiskey was at the time. I don't think Irish whiskey at the time was going to get much better. Things progress, things change, but it's a fabulous single cask whiskey, still available.
Okay, no problem. Thanks a lot for watching. Remember, you can catch the live show every Saturday at 10 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook. During the week, there's usually a podcast on Wednesdays on Anchor or wherever you get your podcast, or you can ask your smart speaker to play it. But remember, Blake's of the Hollow special is on Monday at 7 p.m. So don't miss it. Definitely don't miss it at all. Tell your friends. Hit reminder. I'll post it up so as you don't miss it. Simple as that. Good night, everybody. Good night.